Good evening, whiskey lovers. Tonight I have a special treat for you, a South African whiskey, but not just any South African whiskey, not that there are many to be fair, but this is Bains Cape Mountain Whisky, South Africa's only single grain whiskey. Single grain whiskey is made from grains, as the name indicates. By comparison to single malt is made by the produce of a single distillery, thus the single, and from malted barley. Scotch whiskey is always made from, Scotch single malt is always made from malted barley. Technically, a single malt made elsewhere could be made from another malted grain, such as perhaps rye, but in the vernacular of Scotch whiskey, we'll talk about single malt as always being a malted barley whiskey. So a grain whiskey can be made from a variety of different grains, corn or wheat, also barley and rye. So let's have a drink. First off, in the glass, this is another strongly coloured, rich amber whiskey. Not much of a chestnut hue to it, just a hint. This may perhaps not have any added colouring. It is fairly common to add caramel colouring to whiskey, but I don't think that this has any, but it is possible. It doesn't hit you with a strong hit of alcohol. It's very sweet and very bourbon-like on the nose, and that's a very good thing because bourbons are very sweet. They're aged in new oak barrels, and they've got that strong hit of honey and vanilla straight on the nose, and this really has that. But this has a beautiful floral undertone, perhaps a hint of jasmine, and something spicy like cardamom. It's really a beautiful bouquet on this whiskey. Wonderful. Really, really nice whiskey, this. Agitating the glass obviously shakes the whiskey up a little bit, and that releases more of the aroma for you to enjoy. When nosing a whiskey, get your nose in deep in there as well. That sort of thing isn't very effective. Get your nose deep in the glass and take a few sniffs. Let's have a taste. Well, that's beautiful. This is a very bourbon-like whiskey in that it reminds you of bourbon whiskey, but actually this is, to my taste, my personal taste, a lot nicer than any bourbon I have ever tasted. It's so wonderfully smooth. There is just no discernible burn to it at all. It's warming, but in such a pleasant and comfortable way. This is not a challenging whiskey by any means. It's so beautifully soft and smooth. There is sweetness to it. It is quite sweet. So you got your honey and vanilla flavors there, and there is some spiciness, sort of a mixed spice, maybe some cardamom or some nutmeg, something like that. Very, very nice, this whiskey. And I don't just mean nice at the price, because South African whiskey is very, very cheap in South Africa, and even on the international market it's quite competitive. That is good. If I have anything negative to say, it's that the taste doesn't linger very long. It doesn't stick around, and I suppose doesn't leave you thinking about it and maybe encourage you to have some more as much. But it tastes beautiful, and you can't have everything in a whiskey at this kind of price point. This is not aged, so the flavors won't be terribly complicated, but what is there is beautiful. I'm now going to use my trusty rubber pipette and deposit a few drops of water into this delightful whiskey. Often I will complain at putting water in my whiskey, but I have sampled this before with a bit of water and it is a good thing. Suddenly on the nose, the whiskey opens up. It just releases so much more of that vanilla and cardamom and those floral notes. So the sweetness that was originally there, that almost overwhelming honeyed sweetness has died down a bit, and now it's just so beautifully smooth. It's lovely. The smoothness is, it's so soft and gentle and smooth. This. Again, the sweetness has somewhat died down and there's more spicy notes now, and those are beautiful, and it's very floral. As someone who is a committed Scotch single malt fan, this isn't usually what I would buy, and I usually avoid grain whiskies like the plague, and I've never got anything good to say about blended whiskies. And usually I blend it on the single grain whiskies or the grain whiskies that they've added to the blend. But this is superb. This is something really different and really special. Now, South Africa does make a few whiskies. Probably the most well-known whiskey that they make is Three Ships, or Two Ships, Three Ships. And I don't like them. They're very watery. They're single malt. I've had their 10-year-old single malt, and I wasn't very impressed by that either. I wouldn't even say it's a good mixing whiskey, because it doesn't have, you know, that characteristic taste that a bourbon would have, or Jack Daniels would have for putting into a mixed drink. So I'm not a fan of that stuff, and being a South African, I have drunk it quite a lot. But this is special. Any South Africans watching this, if you haven't tried this, here's the bottle again. Okay, Bains Cape Mountain Whisky. It is fantastic. It is exactly what you want to spend your 200-ish rand on. Now, 200 rand for a bottle of whiskey on an international market is very, very cheap. So if you're a tourist and you want to go visit South Africa, buy some whiskey, because this is so very much better than a bottle of Jack Daniels or J&B or Bell's or White Horse, Bannatynes, any of that sort of thing. This will kick its butt. Okay, so buy this. Okay, so man, it's good. Those chocolate notes are wonderful. And it is sweet, but not sickly sweet, not sort of saccharine, aspartame, Diet Coke kind of sweet. Now, I don't mix my whiskey into mixed up drinks, but this would make an awesome old fashioned, and even just mixed with some soda, this would be outstanding. So yeah, it's great, and at the cost, which is in British money roughly £8, $10–11 for a bottle. You're laughing. You cannot top this for that kind of money. It's an astonishingly good value product. It's made in Wellington. And Wellington, for people who know wine, is a wonderful wine producing region. and they produce a lot of agricultural products over there that are just outstanding. The Cape is truly a magnificent region for producing all sorts of food and drink, and this is no exception. And anyone who can get their hands on it for reasonable money, go out and grab some. Again, I'm comparing this to whiskies at the entry-level price range, roughly around 25 to 30 pounds. This kicks their butt, and it's the best whiskey you can buy for the money. That said, like a variety, this is not traditionally what I would drink anyway. I prefer slightly more subtle whiskies and things with more interesting notes that you can sit down and savor. But this is amazing and I thoroughly recommend it. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Cheers.